Hello class, welcome to Empowerment Technology. So in this video, we're going to learn how to make a automated frequency and percentage distribution table in Microsoft Excel. So here, our data is coming from this part of our Excel. So we have here the respondent number. So we have 40 respondents. The student's name, which is optional, the sexual orientation, the academic track, and then the general weighted average of each of the respondents. So in our first table, we would like to create a frequency and percentage distribution table of the academic performance of grade 12 students, so which is measured by their general weighted average. So in our table, we would like to include the indicator. So in this case, the intervals of the grades, so 74 and below, 75 to 79, grades of 80 to 84, 85 to 89, and then 90 to 100. So first, we would like to count the frequency of the students, or how many of the respondents of the respondents have grades that is equal to or greater than 90 but less than or equal to 100, and the same with the other indicators. So next is we would like to add a a formula that will solve for the percentage of this frequency, equivalent percentage of this frequency, and of course the cumulative percentages, as well as the function that will um, automate the verbal interpretation. So let's proceed with our demonstration. So here I have here a blank, except for the first row. I have here a blank frequency and percentage distribution table for the academic performance of the grade 12 students. So how did we get the 11? So if you don't want to manually count the number of students with grades that are equal to or greater than but less than or equal to 100, so if you don't want to manually count, you can just use the count ifs method or count if s method. So count if or count if s method is just the same or similar to the count if method, so the one without the s. So count ifs method or count if s method is used when you have two or more conditions to be satisfied. So in for example here, our condition is that the grades must be greater than or equal to 90 but less than or equal to 100. So our two conditions is this one and this one. This is our two conditions. So we would like to count the number of respondents. So from this one, from the range E3 to E42, so we would like to count if the cells contains a value that is greater than or equal to 90 but less than or equal to 100. So let's apply the count if s method in our second indicator, which is from 85 to grade of 89. So to do that, we have here equal sign and then followed by the function name, which is count if s, and then open parenthesis, then select the criteria range, so the range where we would like to count. And then our first criteria, so our first criteria here is that the grade must be, so the value, so we need to include open quotation marks. So the grade here must be greater than or equal to 85 but less than or equal to 89. So our first condition is that if the cells E3 to E42 contains a value that is greater than or equal to 85, we need to count that cell. So that is our first condition, and then close quotation mark and then comma. So our second range or criteria range is just the same as our first range, which is E3 to E42, because this is the range where we will find the general weighted average. So we can just copy this one. So E3 to to E42. And then our second criteria here or condition is that the grades must be less than or equal to 89. So if the cell contains a value that is less than or equal to 89, then we also need to count those cells. So here in our countifs method, we have two conditions, which is if E3 to E42 contains a value that is greater than or equal to 85 but less than or equal to 89, then we need to count that cell, so those cells. So if we press enter, so it will now automatically count or give the results of the counting. So you just need to do the same to the other indicators. For example here, so 84 to 80 to 84, so just need to again copy, okay, so again insert equal sign and then count if s, count, open parenthesis, and the range where we would like to do the counting, which is from E3 to E42. And then our first criteria is that the value must be greater than or equal to 80. And our second range, the same lang naman yung second range, which is E3 to E42. Okay. And then our second criteria is that the value must be less than or equal to 84. And then press enter, close parenthesis, and then press enter. And then do the same with the other indicators. So equal sign, count if s, open parenthesis, the range of cells where we would like to do the counting, and then our criteria, which is a value that is greater than or equal to 75, and then the range, second range of our cells, which is the same range lang naman katulad nung kanina, and our second criteria, which is the value must be less than or equal to 79. Close parenthesis and then enter. And then for 74 and below, again count if. So here, since we only have one value, which is 74, so we can just use here count if function. So here it will count. So if the cells from E3 to E42 contains a value that is less than 74, then it will count those cells. Okay. So now, so to get the sum, we just need to add, you just need to use the sum function. So equal sign and then sum, and then select the range of cells where which you would like to add, and you will get the sum of these values. So for the percentage, we know that the percentage is equal to the number of item divided by the number of scores or frequency divided by the total number of frequency times 100. So we can just manually enter in this cell the operation that we need to use. So in this case, the operation is that our frequency, which is 11, divided by the total number of frequency, which is 40, times 100 will give us 27.50. So 11 respondents is 27.50% of the total size of your sample or respondents. So we just need to do the same. So here, take note class that we make use here of the relative referencing or the moving reference, and we also have here absolute referencing. So wherein our absolute reference here is J10. So this is our absolute reference. And then we multiply it by 100. So take note of the BODMAS, the operation precedence for Excel. So for example, if you would like to divide first before multiplying, if you would like to add first before dividing, then you need to make use of the bracket and parenthesis to separate or to rearrange the order of the operation. So here, we need to divide first and then multiply by 100. So to make sure we can include this operation within the parenthesis. Sorry. So again, so equal sign and then select the frequency and then divide it by the total number. So in this case, we need to add here $sign so that J10 will not be moving, and then multiply by 100. So by adding the $sign, so if we copy, for example, this one to the remaining cells, so if we copy this to the remaining cells, you will see here, so the J7 is moving, but the J10 is not moving. So for the cumulative frequency or for cumulative percentage, so in the first row, we just need to copy this one. So this is equal sign and then copy this one and then enter. So for our second row, if we examine here, so to get the cumulative frequency, the second row is that the first percentage plus the second percentage, so meaning 27.50 plus 60 will give us 87.50, and then afterwards 87.50 plus 7.50 will give us 95. 95 plus 0 will give us 95, and 95 plus 5 will give us 100. So to do that, so we need to go to our demo sheet and then equal sign. So this one, so the percentage above plus the percentage, the next percentage will give us the second cumulative percentage. So we just need to copy this to the all of the remaining cells. So again, equal sign and then plus, and then the next value of the percentage, equal sign, and then plus the next value of the percentage, and then equal sign plus the next value of the percentage. So the total should be 100 here. So this one, so this should be equal to 100. So equal to the value of your last row, which is 100. For the verbal interpretation, we just need to add here the corresponding interpretation. So for 90 to 100, we have here advanced. For 85 to 89, proficient. 80 to 84, approaching proficiency. 75 to 79, low proficiency, and 74 and below, beginning. So here, if there is a frequency here, if there are respondents that responds to this indicator, then we need to add the verbal interpretation. If for example there are 0 respondents, for example here, which has a grade of 75 to 79, then we just need to add here not applicable. So therefore we have your advanced students, proficient student, approaching students, and we also have beginning students, but we don't have low proficiency students. So how do we now automate this one? So again, we can use the if function. So here, for example, if our frequency is greater than 0, then the value, if true, is that advanced, because 90 to 100 is advanced, and the value if a J5 is not greater than 0, it should be an A. So let's say, for example, we use this, we copy this, or we create the function for 75 to 79. So if our frequency, sorry, equal sign, so if our frequency, which is cell J8, is greater than 0, then the value should be low proficiency. If it is not greater than 0, or if it is equal to 0, then it should be equal to, the return value should be NA, or not applicable. So since in our table 75 to 79 is equal to 0, therefore the return value for the verbal interpretation is NA. So you can just copy, or we can just edit the function here and copy it to the remaining cells. For example, if I copy it here, so instead of advanced, I can just replace this one with the corresponding description, which is for 85 to 89. This should be proficient. For 80 to 84, approaching proficiency. And for 74 and below, this should be beginning. So for example, I change now the value. If I change the value here, for example, I have 75 to 79, so for example 78, so it will automatically change the values in our table. So here, for the mode, you just need to select the interval, so the indicators which has the most number of frequencies or responses. So for example here, 85 to 89 is our mode because it has higher frequency. It has the highest frequency compared to the other interval, grades interval. And the corresponding verbal interpretation for 85 to 89 is proficient. That is for the frequency distribution table. So let's say, for example, that we are not using this kind of indicators. So for example, academic track, STEM and STEM 12, and then for example, sexual orientation, which is male and female. Therefore, we don't need to include the verbal interpretation. So you just need to include there the indicators, the frequency, the percentage, cumulative percentage, and then the mode. So no need to use the legend, and no need to include the verbal interpretation if your if you are counting the frequency, if you are creating the frequency and percentage distribution for nominal data, such as academic track, STEM, UMS, or sexual orientation, male and female.